U.S. President Donald Trump announced a series of new tariffs, saying they would boost American manufacturing and protect jobs. But import taxes have thrown the global economy into turmoil, and many products are expected to become more expensive for American consumers. The UK and US are set to announce a tariff agreement, and other countries are also hoping to reach an agreement with the White House. What are tariffs and how do they work? Tariffs are taxes imposed on goods purchased from other countries. They are usually a percentage of the product's value. A 10% tariff means that a $10 product will have an additional $1 in tax added to it, bringing the total cost to £11.0835. Businesses bringing foreign goods into the US are required to pay the tax to the government. Businesses may pass some or all of the additional cost on to customers. They may also decide to import fewer goods. Why is Trump resorting to tariffs? Trump says tariffs will encourage American consumers to buy more American-made goods, increase taxes, and lead to massive investment. He wants to reduce the gap between the value of goods the United States buys from other countries and those it sells to them. He argues that America has been taken advantage of by cheaters and looted by foreigners. The US president has made other demands besides tariffs. When he announced the first tariffs of his current term against China, Mexico, and Canada, he said he wanted these countries to do more to prevent illegal immigrants and drugs from reaching the United States. China. Chinese imports to the United States include everything from iPhones and electrical appliances to toys and clothing. Trump announced a 10% tariff on goods from China on February 4, which was doubled to 20% a month later. On April 9, Trump increased tariffs to 145% on most Chinese goods, with some products facing a 245% tax. The tariff exemption on Chinese goods under $800 expired on May 2. Shipments are now subject to a 90% tariff, equivalent to $75 per item, rising to $150 per item after June 1. In retaliation for Trump's actions, China imposed 125% tariffs on U.S. imports. Trump also imposed significant tariffs on China during his first term. His successor, Joe Biden, expanded these tariffs, reducing the volume of U.S. imports from Beijing. However, the United States still buys far more from China, $440 billion, than it sells to China, $145 billion. Canada and Mexico. Trump also targeted Canada and Mexico in February, imposing a 25% tax on imports from both countries and a 10% tax on Canadian energy. There have been several delays and waivers to these tariffs. Canada retaliated by imposing a 25% tax on certain vehicles imported from the United States on April 9. Steel and aluminum. A 25% import tax on all steel and aluminum entering the United States, including products made from these metals, went into effect on March 12. Automobiles. Since April 2, a 25% tax has been imposed on foreign-made vehicles. This tax was expanded to include imported engines and other auto parts on May 3. On April 29, Trump eased regulations to reduce the impact on American automakers. 10% basic and higher tariffs. On April 5, Trump announced that most countries, including the United Kingdom, would face a 10% basic tariff on all goods shipped to the United States. On April 9, Trump unveiled a much higher set of tariffs on approximately 60 countries, described as the worst offending among America's trading partners. Hours later, he announced a 90-day pause, during which all countries except China would pay the 10% basic rate. In response, several countries are working to take retaliatory measures. Smartphones and computers. An exemption for certain electronic devices from China and elsewhere, including smartphones and computers, was announced on April 12. Trump later warned that this waiver may be short-lived. Movies. On May 4, Trump said he wanted to impose 100% tariffs on foreign films to boost the American film industry. How will Trump's tariffs affect the UK? The UK exported nearly £58 billion worth of goods to the US in 2024, primarily cars, machinery, and pharmaceuticals. Currently, most British goods imported to the US face the 10% tariffs announced by Trump, with higher rates imposed on steel, aluminum, and cars. Car manufacturer Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, which sold 100,000 vehicles in the US in 2024, temporarily halted exports to the US after the tariffs began.